Good evening. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different than we normally do. Normally this is just extremely silly. Today it's still very silly, but a little more serious. Today we're going to talk about overclocking the 7900 XTX graphics card. We're going to talk about it in the simplest way possible. We're going to show 4 comparative Steel Nomad runs. All of them will be with settings that you could run in most games. The first is going to be default. Obviously, you can run your card default all the time. Most people do. The next is going to be with a very simple setup of just turning the power limit up to 115% from the 100% and adding a custom fan curve to keep things a little bit cooler, because these things run pretty hot, and they can run hot, but the cooler they run, the more efficiently they're going to run, the higher your clock speeds can get. Third run, we're going to turn up our clock speeds a little bit for both the VRAM and the GPU core itself. I believe I have 2714 for the VRAM with fast timing, and I set the GPU core itself to 3200. For the final run, we just copy and paste the settings from the other runs, and then we undervolt it by 25. So that's a pretty standard setup. You could run almost any current titles like that on these cards. We could get really into why we've set it that way, how low we could get our undervolting, how high we could get our VRAM speeds, clock speeds, how high we could get our core clock speeds. But in general, that's a lot of information. That takes a lot of time. That's a bit much. But in general, as I sit here and chat and babble about like an idiot, you will see in the background that Steel Nomad running and how much cleaner it runs with each interval, each change, each step in the ladder, so to speak. It's definitely worth taking advantage of the features in the AMD Adrenalin software and getting the most you can out of your card. Even if it's simply turning up the few settings I'm showing and enjoying that 9 to 10% uplift you're going to see, because that's right about where it falls in line, is 9 to 10%. Something to keep in mind is every card is going to be different. They do bin differently, so some cards can, do better than others right off the bat. Another thing to consider is my card was running OBS and a bunch of other stuff while I did this. So it is scoring lower than it normally would, but that doesn't stop you from seeing the uplift that you would receive. This is going to be silly, kind of boring. I don't know. Hopefully it helps somebody. It's pretty straightforward. Anyway, bye. AMD cars got a lot of horsepower. AMD, AMD, AMD. AMD.